Here's my initial thoughts about the issues with first, second, and third team. Because when people saw my tweet yesterday, I think that they only thought that I was referring to first team, right? But I was mostly referring to the totality, right, of first, second, and third, saying that I was confused with the overall list. So first thing that immediately stands out to me is that I think Inspired is probably the best player in the entire league, not even just in first team All Pro. Right, so I think that it's criminal that he's not automatically like just the jungler in this list. So I think that first team All Pro should probably be Bwipo, Inspired, and then I guess Quid, Quid and JoJo. I actually think can be changed around. So I think that is actually noticeable because even though C9 was having their stuff go on, I think that the gameplay was really important to look at. And Quid, yes. He was performing a lot better this year than he was performing last year. And again, this is not like a total skill list, right? Because if it was, then, I mean, I don't necessarily think that B-Boy would be number one, right? I still think that, like, okay, even though Berserker is having, like, a really bad split, I think that Berserker would still probably be, like, first or something, right? If we were just going off of, like, total skill potency or something like that. But obviously Berserker's, that's not going to be a thing. So, Inspired would be here, and then JoJo, JoJo and Quid I think are somewhat interchangeable. And then Busio, I saw a lot of people were flaming the Busio thing, but as you and I talked about, right, with Lorlo as well, support is like really difficult just in general. One, there's only 8 teams in LCS. So downsizing by 2 teams means it is naturally going to be easier to obviously make all pro lists. The other thing with this is that support as a role is pretty fucking bad. Like the players in it are not actually particularly good compared to their peers. And what I mean by that is like on like a strength level in terms of gameplay stuff, right? Now supports obviously fulfill roles and they fulfill niches and stuff, right? But there's a reason that like certain support players in other regions really, really, really stand out, and then all the other ones just sort of like blend in together. And the reason for that is that they all just sort of blend in together is because they're not really noticeable because they're all just pretty much doing the same exact thing. In LCS, they all pretty much do the same thing. And the only reason that a lot of supports over the last couple of years keep getting the recognition and stuff is because those supports happen to be the ones that just keep winning. And that's really it. I don't think that it actually has anything to do with looking at their individual gameplay. There's no first-person views. You can't actually see their first-person views. Some of them don't even stream, so it's not even like we're making the copium argument about that in regards to that. You can't really know about their comms and stuff, and that obviously is a valuable skill set in itself, right? You can't look at like their solo queue things because even when they do play solo queue, not all of them are actually playing it super serious. And then sometimes also they only play support, which is a thing in and of itself, right? Whereas if you look at some of the LPL and LCK supports, some of the LCK and LCK supports are actually known for being able to play off roles at particularly high levels. And I think that those things are impressive in itself. Now, Busio, obviously a former mid laner, turned support player, and yes, Busio's entrance into LCS on 100 Thieves, there was that whole stuff. But I do think that it's also really criminal, Busio's performance in LCS even thus far, because I think that he probably just has the deepest support champion pool in LCS, but he doesn't get to show it on FlyQuest. Which I think is like kind of sad in itself. All right, so moving on to second team All Pro. Now again, my gripe is with the totality of the list. So when we move on to second team All Pro, again, Inspired should not be on second team. This should already be moved. Berserker, there is no way in hell is he second. There's no way in hell, man. There is no. He was running it. In some of the things, he was having his upset moments in some of the games. I don't even there's no way that he's second. I don't know what this is in terms of performance or whatever. It just doesn't make any sense. I really think it's like, now I understand that it's like player voted and, media vote and coach vote and all this other type of stuff. But this is totally cope. This is like really, really, really cope. Obviously he's had an amazing narrative around him for 2 years now, and he was just the number 180 carry for 2 years. It's just untouchable for 2 years. So I think that people still just view him in that regard, where he gets a lot of leniency and he gets a lot of credit, even when he's like performing mediocre, because he was just performing mediocre. There's no way in hell that he's actually second in this league. It just does not make any sense whatsoever. If you watched any of the C9 games, the bot lane was just running it. So I just don't even know what to say. Again, we already talked about JoJo. This should already be switched. Isla, so interestingly for Isla, so this is also, again, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Isla, at least, now there is like some proactivity that Isla does try to do, and Isla has been on various teams, obviously, over the last couple of years and stuff. Support does get a little bit difficult to judge at several points, right? I think this is where like you can make conversations about like I mean, I don't necessarily want to talk about like Core JJ necessarily, but I think like this is where you can talk about Core, and this is even where I think that you can talk about even some of the like the bottom tier placing teams that aren't here, where you can even talk about like Zeyzal and Ole, even though their teams weren't necessarily performing, because it's like what really goes into talking about supports at this point, because this is where it gets really weird. Vulcan, there is no way in hell that he's third All-Pro. There's no way he's ever on an All-Pro list. He cannot play Enchanters. He just can't do it. He can't play Enchanters. It's been like 4 years that he can't play Enchanters. It's actually like an identity crisis that he cannot play ranged champions, can't play Enchanters, can only play engages, can only play tanks. It's actually a problem, and I don't know how no one sees it that way. And even when he is playing engaged champions, or when he is playing like these tank bruiser type champions, on an international level, it's not like he's actually better than some of like the top LEC supports. And it's not like it's comparable to an LPL or LCK support. And again, when you get into these aspects of what makes a player good that we have to kind of use conjecture on, you know, not knowing like what they add to the comms or like these types of things, that's where it gets a lot more nuanced. But again, I mean, C9's bot lane actually being second and third All-Pro, it's actually just legacy. That's all that it is. It's complete nonsense. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Now, it's also really good, one, that Fudge is not on here, because Fudge was having the worst split of his fucking entire career. So that's really good as well. So in terms of jungle, I guess Blabber making third, I think is actually really close. I think Umti actually just had better performance than Blabber. If we're going again purely off performance. If you ask me who I think is a better player, I think Blabber is a better player than Umti. I would also probably say that Blabber I think is better than River, right? If I have to like choose a player, I would say that he's probably actually better than both. But performance, I think Umti performed a lot better than Blabber. And again, much like the Berserker and the Vulcan placings on these lists, I think that it's just really weird. And again, very, very high on Berserker, historically, I am, right? So, I don't know what type of fucking cognitive dissonance people will have to say that I'm just, like, being negative towards C9 stuff, also while simultaneously saying that JoJo should be on first All-Pro placing, and all this other stuff. So, there's that. I don't know how Masu is on All-Pro. I actually don't. From like watching the games, yes, he played Kalista in some of the games, and he had some pop-off moments when the team was winning, as Kalista will. But I did not ever see anything from the game states that was like, oh wow, okay, that's interesting, right? Like B-Boy did, right? I don't think that there was anything like that ever really going on, right? I don't think that there was ever any like Berserker-esque hero moments from yesteryears. How are we doing on time? Let me see. We have like a minute left. I don't think there was any like hero moments that ever really came out, right? And so because of that, this is where even third All-Pro 80 carry, it starts to like blend in. And when you start talking about blending in, I think that there's other aspects that need to actually begin getting talked about. Now, everyone really hates on Meech because of apparently like scrim performances, right? But if we talk about like stage performances, at least throughout the duration of the split and whatnot, not necessarily playoffs so far, because this again is based off of playoffs, or not playoffs. This is based off of split and not playoffs. Then Meech actually did have a pretty silent, like solid, stable performance. And then if you go to that extent, then also even Yun at points blended in pretty well. Like everyone's gonna have like their int moments. The same with Amasu had a lot of his int moments in some of the games, along with Busio in bottom lane. And also like the last couple of weeks of FlyQuest, there was definitely a lot of hiccups and stuff that were going on. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now I can see Jensen being here performance-wise. I can see him being third. Yeah, I can see him being third, but I could also see him being dropped to like fourth. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty much like my thoughts on like what's going on. I think Sniper, I think Sniper being third. Sniper being third is. Sniper actually should probably be higher. Actually, when I think about it, if we're going purely off performance, Sniper should probably be higher than Impact. Impact should probably be third. Or maybe even Castle should be third and Impact should be fourth. If we're talking about pure performance, right? So even changing like what I was thinking about earlier, right? And obviously, yeah. Okay. We're almost back in LCS. Was that enough? Was that descriptive enough for you, Digon? I don't know.
That was. I think that was less of a conversation and more of LS.
Well, I was trying to. I'm sorry. I don't.
That's okay. I know how you get when you feel passionate about things. All right.